The marketplace on Station Theta 9 bustled with 1,000 different species, each haggling in their own tongue, while translation implants did the heavy lifting. Vendors called out prices for exotic fruits that glowed in the artificial light. Mechanics advertised repair services for ships that would never see atmosphere again. And somewhere in the distance, a street performer played an instrument that sounded like breaking glass mixed with whale song. Lyra moved through the crowd with practiced ease, her blue-scaled hands clutching a small bag of grain she'd purchased for her younger siblings. The Velen girl was barely into her 20th cycle, her crest feathers still showing hints of juvenile orange among the mature purple. She kept her head down, avoiding eye contact with the larger species that dominated the station's commercial district. The 3 Krogan mercenaries noticed her anyway. They were massive creatures, standing nearly 8 feet tall with chitinous armor plating that covered most of their gray skin. Their compound eyes tracked Lyra as she tried to slip past their position near a weapons vendor. The leader, identifiable by the red markings on his chest plate, stepped into her path. "Little Velen," he rumbled in trade standard, his voice like rocks grinding together. "You owe Boss Thrain money." Lyra's crest feathers flattened against her skull in fear. "I paid last week. My family paid everything we owed." The mercenary clicked his mandibles in what might have been laughter. "Interest. Boss Thrain says your family owes interest. 300 credits. That's not fair. The agreement was for 200 total, and we paid it." The Krogan's hand shot out, gripping Lyra's shoulder with enough force to make her gasp. His claws dug through her thin jacket, drawing small beads of purple blood. The crowd around them began to disperse, as crowds always did when violence was imminent. Nobody wanted to get involved in debt collection, especially not when Krogan enforcers were involved. Fair? The mercenary pulled Lyra closer, his breath reeking of fermented meat. "Fair as I don't break every bone in your pathetic little body right here. Boss Thrain wants his money by end of cycle, or he starts taking payment in other ways. We know where your siblings go to school." Lyra's blood ran cold. "Please don't. They're just children." The second Krogan, bulkier than his leader, cracked his knuckles. "Maybe we take you now, sell you to the pleasure stations. That would cover the debt, and then some." The third mercenary moved to block any escape route. They had done this before, clearly. Corner the weak, threaten the vulnerable, collect from desperate people who had no way to fight back. It was a dance as old as civilization itself, playing out on a space station at the edge of explored territory. Lyra struggled, but the grip on her shoulder only tightened. Her bag of grain fell to the deck, splitting open and scattering seeds across the metal floor. The leader drew a knife, long and serrated, designed for maximum pain rather than clean kills. "Since you can't pay," he said, "we'll send your family a message they won't forget. 1 finger for each 100 credits you owe. Maybe next time they'll prioritize better." The knife came up, catching the artificial light. Lyra screamed, but the sound was lost in the ambient noise of the marketplace. The blade descended toward her outstretched hand. It never connected. Something hit the Krogan, leader like a cargo hauler at full thrust, sending both the mercenary and his attacker tumbling across the deck in a tangle of limbs. The knife clattered away, spinning under a nearby stall. The other 2 Krogans spun toward the threat, weapons appearing in their hands with practiced speed. The human rolled to his feet with unexpected grace for his species. He was tall by human standards, built lean and rangy, wearing the coveralls of a ship mechanic. His dark hair was tied back in a practical knot, and his brown eyes assessed the situation with the kind of calm that came from experience. 3 on 1, the human said in trade standard, his accent marking him as from Earth's northern hemisphere. "That seems a bit unfair, doesn't it?" The Krogan leader regained his feet, mandibles spread wide in aggression. Stay out of this, human. This doesn't concern your kind. Well, now I've made it my concern. The human's stance shifted, weight balanced, hands loose at his sides. The girl doesn't owe you anything. She said she paid. Her family owes interest. Interest that wasn't part of the original agreement. That's called extortion where I come from. Also called a good way to get your teeth kicked in. The bulky Krogan laughed, a sound like boulders rolling downhill. You think you can fight all three of us, human? Your species is weak, soft. You're only good for your toys and your ships. The human smiled, but there was no humor in it. Funny thing about humans. We didn't claw our way to the top of our food chain by being the biggest or the strongest. We did it by being too stubborn to know when we're beaten, and creative about how we hurt things that threaten us. He moved before the Krogans could react, faster than Lyra thought possible. Humans weren't supposed to be quick. Every species in the known galaxy knew that humans were the slow ones, the physically weak ones who compensated with technology, and ships. This human clearly hadn't gotten the memo. He closed the distance to the nearest Krogan in 3 long strides, ducking under a massive fist that would have shattered a human skull. Instead of trying to match strength against strength, he struck at joints and soft points with precise, brutal efficiency. A palm strike to the mandible joint made the mercenary stagger. An elbow to the knee brought him down to a manageable height. A knee to the compound eye cluster sent him sprawling. The leader roared and charged, but the human was already moving, using the falling Krogan's body as a springboard to launch himself at the third mercenary. He caught the Krogan around the neck, his legs wrapping around the massive torso, and wrenched sideways with his entire body weight. The sickening crack echoed through the suddenly silent marketplace. The third Krogan dropped like a puppet with cut strings, dead before he hit the deck. The human landed in a crouch. Breathing hard but steady, the leader stared at his fallen comrade, then at the human, his compound eyes reflecting a new emotion, fear. You killed Vex, he whispered. He shouldn't have threatened a child, the human replied, standing slowly. Now you've got 2 choices. You can walk away, tell your boss that the debt is paid, and any further harassment will result in me visiting him personally. Or you can try to avenge your friend, and I'll send you back to him in pieces small enough to fit in a cargo container. The Krogan leader's mandibles clicked rapidly, his species equivalent of nervous stammering. Every warrior culture in the galaxy understood the basic truth that the human had just demonstrated. It didn't matter how big you were if the other fighter was willing to kill without hesitation. Boss Thrain won't like this, the leader managed. Then Boss Thrain can come find me himself. My name is Jake Martinez. I work at the Freeman's Luck Docking Bay, Earth 17. I'll be there if he wants to discuss the matter. The leader helped his injured companion to his feet, and they retreated, dragging Vex's corpse between them. The crowd that had scattered began to return, whispers spreading like wildfire through the marketplace. A human had killed a Krogan enforcer in single combat. That would be the talk of the station for weeks. Jake turned to Lyra, who was still frozen against the wall, her crest feathers vibrating with shock. He approached slowly, hands visible and non-threatening. You okay? He asked. Lyra nodded, then shook her head, then nodded again. You saved my life. Yeah, well? Jake rubbed the back of his neck, suddenly looking embarrassed. I don't like bullies. Doesn't matter what planet they're from. You killed him. For me. You don't even know me. Didn't need to know you to see what was happening wasn't right. Jake bent down and started gathering the scattered grain, scooping it back into the torn bag as best he could. Sorry about your purchase. Lyra knelt beside him, her hands shaking as she helped. Why did you help? Humans are supposed to be cautious. Everyone says you only fight from behind ships and weapons. Jake laughed, a short bark of sound. Everyone doesn't know humans very well then. We've got this thing back on Earth. We tell stories about it. The idea that when you see someone in trouble, you don't walk away. You don't calculate the odds or worry about whether it's smart. You just help because it's the right thing to do. Not all of us live up to it, but we try. That's foolish, Lyra said softly. Probably. But it's our kind of foolish. Jake stood, holding the bag of grain carefully. You got somewhere safe to go? Because those guys might come back with more friends. Lyra took the bag, her fingers brushing against his. Thank you, Jake Martinez. My name is Lyra. And yes, I have somewhere safe. Will you be all right? When Boss Thrain comes for you. Jake's smile was sharp. Let him come. Maybe it's time someone taught these crime bosses that humans might be new to the galactic community, but we're not prey. We didn't survive ice ages and predators, and our own tendency towards self-destruction, just to roll over for some thug who thinks might makes right. He walked her to the edge of the marketplace, made sure she got on the tram, headed for the residential sectors, then turned back toward the docking bays. Behind him, the marketplace buzzed with new respect, new fear, and new understanding. Humans were weak. Everyone knew that. But they were learning now what humans had always known about themselves. Weakness was relative, and will.